Only 80s and 90s kids will remember strict school rules that shaped daily life. From morning assemblies to constant permissions, these routines built discipline, respect, and unforgettable memories rarely experienced today. Booster seats on the school bus were a symbol of being just a little older, a little taller, or a little braver. Sitting high enough to see everything but still small enough to feel protected. These seats provided the perfect perch for gossip, jokes, and the excitement of the daily ride. Friends crowded around, trading stories about homework, TV shows, and weekend plans, while the rumble of the bus wheels became the soundtrack of childhood. Booster seats offered both a literal and figurative perspective on school life, bridging the small world of the classroom with the larger adventures that awaited. Beyond the doors, and from the bus, every kid knew that recess, games, and playground antics were never far away, ready to create the next unforgettable memory. Answering the phone properly was treated like a test of character. When the phone rang, kids were expected to stop whatever they were doing and answer calmly and politely. Sloppy greetings were corrected immediately. You did not say hello casually. You said hello clearly, sometimes followed by the family name. Parents believed the way you answered reflected the entire household. Hanging up correctly mattered too. Slamming the phone down was unacceptable. You learned to speak clearly, listen carefully, and take messages seriously. Even caller mistakes were handled formally. This rule taught communication skills early, even if it felt intimidating. Many adults today still answer unknown calls with a more serious tone than necessary, and once phone behavior was controlled, another kitchen-related rule waited close by. Drawing chalk obstacle courses on cracked driveways let kids turn ordinary concrete into a world of imagination. They dragged sticks of chalk across the pavement, creating hopscotch grids, winding racetracks, and wild challenges with arrows and numbered squares. Each course came with rules invented on the spot. Kids jumped, skipped, and spun through the patterns while neighbors gathered to cheer or take turns. Footprints in chalk dust marked the ground, and the designs stayed there until rain washed everything away. Sometimes kids added doodles, stars, or secret messages along the edges just for fun. Even though chalk left hands dusty and clothes marked with bright streaks, nobody minded. The creativity felt endless. And while chalk designs transformed driveways into playground maps, the next after-school experience sent kids inside to plan the evening with a very specific tool. Library shelf reading day sounded harmless until you realized it meant actual work. The librarian explained alphabetizing like it was an ancient ritual that required your full devotion. Kids pretended to hate it, groaning and dragging their feet, but secretly, it was kind of peaceful. The smell of old books, the quiet creak of the floor, and the thrill of finding something out of order like a detective. We got distracted by random titles, read the backs of books we never intended to check out, and whispered to friends across the aisle like fugitives. Someone always knocked over a stack or shelved something in the wrong place just to see if anyone would notice. There was a weird sense of pride when the librarian said, "Good work," like we'd achieved something noble instead of just putting books where they belonged. But as calm as the library felt, the second we heard the words, "Everyone grab a flyer," we knew what was coming next. Nothing defined the classroom like the classic troublemaker, gum stuck under the desk. Every kid knew it was forbidden, yet every kid had encountered it at least once. That sticky mess clung to shoes, fingers, and occasionally hair, making a simple walk to your seat a potential adventure or disaster. Teachers would glare, desks would be inspected, and yet the presence of gum somehow added character to the school day. There was an unspoken camaraderie among students who navigated this sticky landscape, carefully avoiding the worst spots while laughing quietly at each new victim. And while gum might seem like a minor nuisance, it often accompanied another everyday delight, lining up in the cafeteria for a cup of bright, tangy orange drink that made lunch feel special. Being home before the streetlights came on was a rule understood without explanation. Parents did not give exact times or warnings. When the lights flickered on, that was your signal. You dropped whatever you were doing and headed home, fast. It did not matter if the game was unfinished or the conversation was important. Streetlights meant time was up. This rule taught time awareness and responsibility without clocks or phones. Kids learned to judge the fading daylight instinctively. Being late brought consequences, even if you were only a few minutes behind. Many adults still feel an internal clock trigger at dusk because of this rule. And once you made it home in time, another rule waited at the front door. Swapping stickers on school bus windows before getting off was a ritual that blended trading, friendships, and imagination. Kids carried sticker books, loose sheets, or homemade collections tucked into folders. As the bus slowed near their stop, children pressed stickers against the windows, showing off designs as they made deals with friends. Animals, cartoon characters, glitter shapes, and fuzzy textures all held value. Kids haggled over trades like mini businessmen, trying to upgrade collections with rare finds. Some stickers were saved for special pages at home, while others ended up stuck on binders, lamps, or bedroom doors. Even though certain trades felt unfair later, the excitement of swapping something small for something special made the moment worth it. And while stickers made buses feel like moving marketplaces, the next after-school activity cooled kids down in a way that still brings back summer memories. Standardized test pep talks were supposed to inspire us, but mostly made us question everything. Teachers gathered the class like a coach preparing for the Super Bowl, telling us to eat a good breakfast, get plenty of sleep, and believe in yourselves, which only made the upcoming test feel even more ominous. Posters with cartoon pencils and smiling brain cells decorated the walls like propaganda. We acted annoyed, slouched in our seats, and nodded dramatically, but secretly we liked the attention. It was nice being hyped up like champions, even if it was just for bubbling in answers on a Scantron sheet. The pep talk always ended with the phrase, "These tests do not define you," which made us wonder why everyone seemed so stressed about them. Once the speech wrapped and the pencils were sharpened to lethal points, there was only one thing that could distract us from the impending doom. A surprise announcement about being sent somewhere unexpected. Chalkboard erasers may seem mundane today, but in the 1980s they were a constant companion to every lesson. Smudged boards, streaky surfaces, and the cloud of chalk dust made erasing a full blackboard both a challenge and a skill to master. Kids competed to be called up to clean the board, trying not to leave streaks or miss a single letter. The eraser itself, often worn down unevenly or fraying at the edges, became a personal extension of your classroom effort. And even though erasing seemed like a small task, it connected directly to other moments of childhood fascination, like exploring books that smelled as good as they looked, scratch and sniff pages in storybooks, reading assignments, or stickers offered another layer of sensory adventure, blending imagination with a tiny burst of aroma that made every lesson memorable. Touching the thermostat was one of the fastest ways to get into trouble. Parents guarded it like a sacred object. It did not matter if the house was freezing or unbearably hot. The temperature was set, and it stayed that way. Kids were told touching it could break it, waste money, or somehow ruin the entire heating system. Many homes had strict temperature rules depending on the season. Sweaters were worn indoors, fans were used strategically, complaints were ignored. This rule taught kids endurance and patience, even if it felt unreasonable. To this day, many adults hesitate before adjusting a thermostat, hearing their parents' voice in their head. And while temperature was controlled tightly, how you behaved at the dinner table mattered just as much. Mixing powdered drink packets into tap water for a quick snack was a simple joy that every kid understood. They tore open paper packets and poured brightly colored powder into a glass, watching clouds of flavor swirl through the water. A quick stir with a spoon created something sweet, cold, and refreshing. Kids experimented with too much powder, or not enough, adjusting recipes like tiny scientists. Sometimes the drink left sticky rings on counters or stained lips in neon colors. Parents did not always approve, but the convenience made powdered drinks a perfect after-school treat. The whole process took less than a minute and tasted like reward. And while sugary drinks helped kick off afternoons, the next after-school habit stuck to notebooks and bus windows in a colorful and collectible way. Classroom job election week felt like a miniature version of politics before we even knew what politics were. Teachers insisted everyone has responsibilities, but we all knew what that meant: war. Kids pretended to hate it, slouching and sighing as roles were announced. But deep down, every single one of us wanted line leader, paper passer, or the crown jewel terrarium feeder, where you got to sprinkle fish food into the classroom aquarium like a deity. Campaign speeches happened whether teachers approved or not. Bribes were offered in the form of gel pens and snack swaps. Slogans were shouted across the room. Someone always claimed election fraud when they didn't get the job they wanted. And once the jobs were finally assigned, everyone immediately regretted the one they got, especially if it was something cursed like board eraser or chair stacker. But before the resentment could settle, the next event swooped in like a sugar-scented distraction, one where the prize wasn't power, but pastry. Fire and tornado drills were moments that combined discipline, anticipation, and a little thrill. The shrill sound of bells or alarms sent students filing out of classrooms in orderly lines, hearts racing and sneakers squeaking against the floor. Teachers guided students with calm authority, while the world outside, the playground, hallways, and stairwells, became a temporary stage for rehearsal and readiness. These drills instilled a sense of responsibility, taught emergency protocols, and occasionally created moments of whispered jokes or playful dares. The combination of structure and mild excitement left a lasting impression, reminding every student that school life was about balance, learning, play, safety, and preparation. And as these routines passed, the focus would inevitably return to everyday classroom fun, where the next nostalgic adventure, library books, and Dewey Decimal discoveries awaited. Using good china only for special occasions was deeply ingrained. Plates and cups were reserved for holidays and guests. Kids were warned never to touch them. These items symbolized importance and respect. Everyday meals used simpler dishes. This rule taught value and preservation. Even now, many people own dishes they rarely use, and once dinnerware rules were learned, television rules returned again. Walking to a nearby corner store just to play a single arcade game was a mission kids took seriously. A pocket full of coins meant possibility. The electronic beeps and bright screens called out from the corner of the store, where a small arcade cabinet waited beside candy displays and magazine racks. Kids stood on tiptoes or leaned forward, gripping the joystick tightly as they tried to beat high scores. Sometimes they waited in line, watching older kids play and studying their moves. One game could make or break an afternoon. Even when they lost, the thrill of trying was worth it. The sound of the bell above the door, the smell of gum and snacks, and the electric glow of the screen made this routine unforgettable. And while arcade corners pulled kids into new worlds, the next after-school memory turned quiet driveways into chalk-covered playgrounds. Magazine cutout collage lessons were sold as creative expression, but really they were an excuse to destroy every magazine in the classroom. We pretended to hate sitting through instructions, but once teachers dumped a pile of old National Geographics and Parents magazines onto the table, it was game on. Kids snatched pages like scavengers, hunting for the perfect picture or motivational word to glue to a piece of construction paper. Suddenly, everyone became an artist. The quiet kid turned into a renegade designer. The class clown made surreal collages with floating heads and random objects. Glue sticks dried out every 5 minutes. Someone got scissors confiscated for unsafe snipping. Even the teacher's example collage looked like a cry for help. In the end, the walls filled with masterpieces nobody understood but everyone admired. And before the glue even dried, an announcement from the front of the room made every kid's stomach drop because today was also textbook inspection day. Sticker trading was a language all its own. Lisa Frank stickers, with their neon unicorns smiling under rainbow skies, became the prized currency of recess. Kids would compare collections, trade duplicates for rare designs, and even invent secret codes to protect their favorite finds. The act of trading required negotiation skills, courage, and the occasional bluff, because losing a coveted sticker could feel like losing a tiny treasure. These small exchanges were more than just fun. They were social experiments in trust, friendship, and clever strategy. And while stickers could brighten notebooks, lunchboxes, and binders, classroom life demanded focus elsewhere. Every day we faced the inevitable struggle of chalkboard lessons and the relentless dust of erasers, a seemingly simple tool that could test patience, skill, and frustration tolerance. Turning off lights the moment you left a room was treated like a matter of national importance. Parents acted as if every glowing bulb was draining the family fortune in real time. You could be gone for 5 seconds and still hear someone yell for you to come back and switch it off. It did not matter if you were coming right back or if the room was still in use. Lights on meant waste, and waste was unacceptable. Kids learned to move through the house in near darkness, flipping switches with precision. This rule was less about electricity and more about discipline. It taught awareness, responsibility, and the idea that resources were limited. Even today, many adults still feel a twinge of guilt leaving a light on. And while lights were serious business, nothing caused more fear than accidentally touching the next forbidden household control. Digging through the freezer for homemade ice pops in plastic tubes became a daily treasure hunt. Kids searched behind frozen meat and bags of vegetables, looking for bright tubes of icy sweetness waiting to be cut open with scissors. The cold rush on a hot afternoon tasted like freedom. Children compared flavors, argued over colors, and slurped melted juice straight from the bottom of the tube. Frozen treats dripped onto porches and left sticky trails down forearms, and nobody cared. Even though the pops were simple, the anticipation felt huge every single day. Parents liked them because they were cheap and easy, and kids loved them because they meant playtime could keep going outside. And while ice pops cooled off afternoons, the next after-school adventure took kids beyond their yards and into a world of flashing lights and pocket change. Film strip substitute day felt like a fever dream. The substitute teacher wheeled in the projector like it was a prized possession and announced, "We'll be watching a film strip," which always sounded educational but never was. The lights went off, the room smelled faintly of dust and overheated bulbs, and the cassette tape started with that iconic beep, beep, beep. Everyone groaned, rolled their eyes, and immediately leaned forward like they were about to watch the latest blockbuster. Half the time the audio didn't sync with the pictures. The substitute had to rewind every few minutes. Somebody always fell asleep, and somebody else always flicked spitballs into the projector light like it was target practice. We pretended we hated it, but secretly, it was a break from reality, a sanctioned daydream session. And as the film strip ended with a message nobody actually listened to, the teacher inevitably pivoted to the next thing we had to endure. A motivational talk we absolutely didn't ask for. Mini ice cream sandwiches were a lunchtime delight, perfectly portioned to satisfy cravings without overindulging. Each bite of chocolate cookie surrounding creamy ice cream offered a burst of cold sweetness that seemed almost magical on hot school days. Kids would trade flavors, compare favorites, and secretly savor every morsel while avoiding sticky fingers on desks or homework. These tiny treats became a ritual, marking special occasions or ordinary afternoons with a touch of joy. And while frozen desserts delighted the taste buds, keeping the refrigerator door closed while deciding was strictly enforced. Parents believed every open second wasted cold air and money. Kids were told to know exactly what they wanted before opening it. Standing there staring inside was guaranteed to cause frustration. This rule taught decisiveness and efficiency. You learned to plan snacks in your head before acting. Even today, many adults still feel rushed when opening the refrigerator. And while food access was controlled, car behavior came with its own strict expectations. Making secret forts behind couch cushions or bed sheets offered a personal hideaway that felt like another world. Kids dragged cushions, blankets, folding chairs, and whatever else they could find, constructing walls and roofs with careful balance. Inside the fort, the space felt cozy and private. They brought flashlights, snacks, books, or small toys to make it feel like home. Parents might roll their eyes at the mess, but forts created a quiet place where imagination grew. Some kids invented stories, pretended they were in distant lands, or hosted secret club meetings hidden from the rest of the house. Even though the structure usually collapsed at least once, building it again was part of the fun. And while forts created private adventures indoors, the next after-school ritual started with a pile of forgotten toys and the promise of discovery. Science textbook check-in day was the academic equivalent of a court trial. Teachers walked desk to desk, flipping through textbooks like detectives searching for evidence. We pretended to hate it, but the suspense was addictive. Did your book have doodles in the margins? Was the spine cracked? Was page 48 missing because someone used it to fold a paper airplane? We held our breath, praying the teacher wouldn't flip to the exact page where we'd drawn a mustache on the diagram of a cell. Kids who'd spent the entire year treating their textbook like a sacred object gloated. The rest of us improvised excuses. It was like that when I got it. I think someone switched mine. Or the classic, I don't even use my book. Teachers assigned fines like judges issuing sentences. Even if you got off clean, the emotional damage was done. And just when it felt safe, teachers delivered the final blow. It was time to clean everything. The start of the school year in the 1980s meant one thing for every kid: the chance to show off a brand new Trapper Keeper. These colorful binders were more than just a place to store homework. They were a statement. Each design was bold, filled with neon colors, geometric patterns, or licensed characters, and choosing the right one was a serious business. Inside, dividers separated math from spelling, notes from doodles, while outside, stickers and patches turned a simple binder into a personal canvas. Kids would spend hours organizing papers, carefully snapping the Velcro closures, and swapping tips on how to keep the chaos at bay. The thrill of opening a fresh Trapper Keeper, pristine and full of possibilities, made the start of a new school year feel electric. And while Trapper Keepers gave us a sense of organization and pride, they quickly led to a very different kind of excitement: the art of trading stickers with classmates during recess, a ritual that brought friendship, negotiation, and just a touch of competition to every playground. Keeping elbows off the dinner table was non-negotiable. Parents watched closely, correcting posture mid-meal. Sitting up straight was a sign of respect, and slouching was frowned upon. Meals were about manners as much as food. Kids learned quickly how to balance comfort with expectation. This rule was enforced even during casual dinners. It taught awareness of body language and presentation. Even when eating alone later in life, many people still instinctively keep their elbows tucked in. And as strict as table manners were, wasting food was considered an even greater offense. Checking television listings in a newspaper to plan evening shows gave kids a sense of control before streaming existed. They scanned tiny grids printed in black ink, searching for show times and special episodes. Kids circled programs with pens, made mental notes, or left the paper open on a coffee table so they did not forget. The excitement came from anticipation. If a favorite cartoon or movie was coming on later, kids planned everything around that show. They hurried through homework, asked to eat dinner early, or begged to stay up just 30 minutes longer. Even though some listings were confusing and stations occasionally changed scheduled times, the process of planning television felt important. And while newspapers organized the night's entertainment, the next after-school moment turned music and boredom into a kind of mission. In-class Scholastic Book Fair preview was capitalism disguised as education. We pretended we didn't care, flipping through the flyer like it was beneath us, but we circled prices and compared wish lists like stock traders. Posters of kittens and Lamborghinis fought for space with Goosebumps books, novelty pencils, and erasers shaped like food. We acted annoyed that we couldn't buy everything on the spot, sighing dramatically like, whatever. But we already knew what we were begging our parents for that night. Teachers treated it like a reading opportunity. But we knew the truth. The book fair was the Super Bowl of school shopping. And once the preview ended and the flyers were tucked into backpacks like classified documents, the classroom buzzed with anticipation because whether we admitted it or not, we lived for the drama of the checkout line on book fair day. Passing notes was the ultimate form of covert communication before the age of digital messaging. Small squares of paper, carefully folded into secret envelopes, could carry messages of friendship, crushes, or weekend plans. Passing a note required skill. Slide it under a desk, hand it off unnoticed, or stash it in a pencil case without getting caught by the teacher. The thrill of secrecy made even the simplest message feel dramatic, turning a regular school day into a covert adventure. Every folded note was a tiny rebellion, a reminder that school life had its own secret world. And just as notes carried whispered stories across the classroom, playgrounds and hallways soon offered their own daily adventures, each waiting for the next kid, ready to make a memory. Sitting too close to the television was treated like a health emergency. Parents warned it would ruin your eyes or damage the screen. Kids were constantly told to move back. The correct distance felt arbitrary, but was enforced consistently. This rule taught moderation and awareness of limits. Even now, many people adjust their distance without thinking. And as television rules were enforced, bedtime rules were waiting just around the corner. Racing to claim the best spot on the living room floor before cartoons started felt like the official beginning of after-school freedom. Kids dropped backpacks by the door and sprinted to the television, hoping to secure their preferred spot on the carpet. Some liked stretching out right in front of the screen, while others chose a favorite pillow or blanket nearby. The glow of the television, the sound of theme songs, and the smell of whatever was cooking in the kitchen made the afternoon feel perfect. There was no streaming or pausing, so timing mattered. If you were late, you missed moments everyone would talk about tomorrow. Even though siblings argued over volume or channel choices, being together in those moments felt special. And while claiming the floor meant claiming control, the next after-school ritual brought a flavor that stuck to childhood memories. Vision and hearing test day always started the same way. A teacher rolled in that little folding screen and a stack of paper passes, and suddenly the room turned into a doctor's office with zero privacy. Kids lined up pretending they didn't care, but everyone was secretly terrified they'd fail and get glasses or a note sent home. The whisper test felt like something out of a spy movie. Cover one ear, then the other, and repeat whatever random letters and numbers the nurse mumbled like she was trying to crack a code. Then came the eye chart. Everyone leaned back, squinting like they were auditioning for a role as confused child #3 in a sitcom. Kids pretended to be annoyed by being pulled from class, but honestly, it was thrilling. It broke routine, gave everyone something to gossip about, and occasionally earned someone a heroic return to class with a mysterious note in hand. And just when you relaxed, thinking the day would be normal again, you'd hear the familiar rattle of the projector cart outside the door. The lunchboxes in the 1980s were more than containers for peanut butter sandwiches and apple slices. They were a badge of personality care. Bare and Garbage Pail Kids lunchboxes, with their bright colors and playful designs, were a must-have for any trend-conscious kid. Opening a lunchbox was an experience in itself, revealing not just food, but personality, humor, and fandom. These lunchboxes sparked conversations, trades, and even envy among classmates, marking them as symbols of identity and taste. Yet, as iconic as lunchboxes were, they could not compete with another daily ritual, the enduring challenge of hand-crank pencil sharpeners in every classroom. Never opening the car door until an adult said so was a safety rule that felt serious. Kids sat quietly, waiting for permission even after the car stopped. Parents feared traffic, sudden movement, or accidents. This rule taught patience and awareness. You learned to stay still and listen. Many adults still pause before exiting vehicles out of habit. And once outside the car, another household rule followed you indoors. Calling radio stations to request songs before dinner was a classic after-school tradition. Kids dialed phone numbers repeatedly, hoping to reach a real disc jockey before the busy signal returned. When a voice finally answered, it felt like talking to a celebrity. They asked for a favorite song, dedicated it to a friend, or tried to get their name mentioned on air. Then came the waiting game. Kids kept the radio volume low but close, listening for that moment when the requested song started playing. When it happened, excitement filled the room. Kids shouted for siblings to listen or turned the volume up as loud as parents allowed. Even if the request never made it on air, the act of trying felt exciting. And while radio calls connected kids to music, the next after-school activity brought imagination into living rooms with items found around the house. Milk carton gardening projects always felt like a school conspiracy to turn classrooms into science experiments gone wrong. Teachers passed out rinsed milk cartons that somehow still smelled faintly like spoiled dairy and handed out a single bean seed like it was a life-changing artifact. We groaned, rolled our eyes, and acted like we were too cool to care, but the second we pushed that seed into the dirt, it became personal. Kids decorated their cartons with markers, stickers, and names like Beano the Third, then lined them up on the windowsill like a tiny greenhouse army. Every morning became a ritual, rushing to the window to see who sprouted first, who was growing the fastest, and whose bean plant looked like it needed life support. Arguments broke out over sunlight rights. Someone always overwatered. Someone else's plant grew like it was training for the Olympics. By week 3, the room smelled like wet soil and sour milk cartons, but nobody truly hated it. And as we watched our bean babies grow, we knew chaos was never far away, especially on days involving scissors and glue sticks. Reading aloud was a moment of bravery in every student's day. Sitting at your desk, flipping to the assigned page, and projecting your voice to the entire class was a true test of focus and courage. One mispronounced word or stutter could bring whispers, giggles, or sympathetic smiles, making the experience a mixture of anxiety and pride. Reading aloud taught patience, clarity, and confidence, and for many, it was the first taste of performing under pressure. The nerves it inspired, however, were often soothed by small joys elsewhere in the classroom, like personalizing lockers with decorations, pictures, and magnets that reflected your style and personality. Being forced to eat everything on your plate was a rule many kids remember clearly. Parents believed finishing your food showed gratitude and respect. It did not matter if you disliked it or were already full. Leaving food behind was unacceptable. Kids sat at tables long after meals ended, staring at vegetables they did not want. This rule was rooted in scarcity and appreciation. It taught perseverance, even if it sometimes backfired. Many adults today still struggle with finishing portions out of habit, and once dinner was over, another strict rule followed kids into the living room. Sorting through wooden toy boxes looking for missing puzzle pieces was an after-school treasure hunt that mixed frustration and fun. Kids dug past action figures, plastic cars, broken crayons, and forgotten stuffed animals, determined to find the one piece that made the puzzle complete. Wooden toy boxes creaked when opened, and digging through them felt like exploring buried treasure. Every discovery felt important, even if it was not the piece they wanted. Kids often found things they had forgotten they owned, leading to new games or creative ideas. Sometimes the missing piece never showed up, but the search became its own adventure. And while toy box digging brought little surprises from the past, the next after-school challenge pushed physical skills in a very familiar setting. The surprise health and hygiene talk was the ultimate ambush. A nurse, or worse, a guest speaker showed up with pamphlets and diagrams nobody wanted to see. We pretended to hate it, slumping in our seats and refusing to make eye contact, but the curiosity was unavoidable. Words like hormones, deodorant, and body changes echoed through the room like forbidden spells. Kids giggled uncontrollably, someone fainted, Someone asked a question that made everyone scream. Teachers tried to act professional while praying no one said anything embarrassing. The videos were ancient, starring kids dressed like time travelers who spoke in monotone about growth. But deep down, we all paid attention because the minute the nurse mentioned something we recognized, it felt like discovering a cheat code for surviving adolescence. And as the talk ended and pamphlets were shoved into backpacks like contraband, we knew school wasn't done messing with us, yet the next event would require campaigning, slogans, and the kind of drama only children can produce. Locker decorations were a canvas for self-expression in an era before social media. Kids proudly displayed photos, posters, stickers, and even small trinkets, turning the metal doors into tiny showcases of individuality. From cartoon characters to inspirational quotes, each locker told a story, offering glimpses into hobbies, crushes, and personal tastes. Friends would gather to admire collections, trade small items, and leave secret notes tucked inside. It was a private space that connected personal expression with social interaction, and while lockers were a place to show off, they also reminded every student of the communal energy of school. And speaking of communal energy, no school memory was complete without the rumble and camaraderie of riding the bus, often from a special vantage point in a booster seat at the back. Not changing the television channel without permission was serious business. Parents controlled viewing choices carefully. You asked before touching the dial. Channels were chosen deliberately. This rule taught respect for shared space. Even now, some adults hesitate before changing channels, and as screens were regulated, bedtime rules waited close behind. Desk cleanout. Before break was archaeology by way of chaos. Kids pulled open desks like they were discovering buried treasure or possibly a biohazard. We pretended to hate it, loudly complaining while secretly thrilled by what we might dig up. Fossilized snacks, half-melted crayons, a note passed 3 months ago that was never delivered, homework we swore we turned in, a pencil case that smelled like despair. The teacher walked around like an IRS auditor, demanding progress and threatening garbage bags. Kids sat on the floor, surrounded by piles of mystery items, deciding what to keep, what to toss, and what to hide under someone else's desk. And in the final moments, when desks were finally empty and smelling like disinfectant and regret, the teacher made an announcement that hit harder than any punishment. Tomorrow was the day we'd all been dreading and secretly enjoying for years. Scratch and sniff books were magic in the palm of your hand. Whether it was the scent of fresh apples in a reading assignment or a sweet candy smell on a sticker, these sensory experiences brought stories to life. Kids would spend minutes lingering over a page, pressing their noses close and comparing scents with friends, giggling at the unexpected bursts of fragrance. These books transformed ordinary reading into an interactive adventure, one that paired learning with delight. Yet as immersive as books could be, another classroom ritual demanded stealth, creativity, and dexterity, the careful art of passing folded notes. Bake sale price tagging party turned the classroom into a chaotic bakery accounting office. We pretended to hate being stuck in the classroom tagging brownies and cupcakes, but every kid had their eyes locked on the treats like predators waiting to pounce. Teachers armed us with stickers, dull scissors, and instructions that nobody followed. Prices were inconsistent at best: 25 cents for a chocolate chip cookie, $1.50 for a slightly melted Rice Krispies treat that looked like it had survived a hurricane. Someone licked frosting off their fingers when they thought nobody was looking. Someone else pleaded to reserve a treat for later like it was a rare artifact. The classroom smelled like sugar and desperation. And while we pretended to be annoyed, every kid mentally calculated how many items they could buy tomorrow if they convinced a parent to hand over spare change. But before dessert dreams could fully take over, the teacher posted a sign-up sheet for something much scarier, proving what we did or didn't know. Perfect attendance stickers were the ultimate badge of pride for students who rarely missed a day of school. Teachers handed them out with beaming smiles, recognizing dedication and reliability. while kids eagerly displayed them on folders, binders, or even lunchboxes. Collecting these stickers became a quiet competition, with some students striving to earn one each month, hoping to show classmates their commitment. Beyond mere recognition, the stickers symbolized responsibility and perseverance, small triumphs that helped shape work ethic and self-esteem. Each sticker was a tangible reminder that effort mattered, a simple reward that still brought smiles decades later. And while these stickers celebrated school diligence, another sweet reward often awaited after lunch or recess: the irresistible mini ice cream sandwiches that made the cafeteria line an even more enticing destination. Geography B sign-up day looked harmless from the hallway, but the second your teacher announced it, panic set in. Nobody wanted to participate, yet nobody wanted to look like they couldn't. Kids pretended to hate it, arms crossed, eyes on the floor, but the competitive ones were already mentally mapping continents like secret agents. The sign-up sheet traveled desk to desk like a hot potato. Some kids wrote their names bravely, others scribbled so illegibly they hoped no one could read it. Then came the dreaded practice round questions fired like trivia bullets. Capital cities? Blank stares. Rivers? Nervous laughter. Someone shouted "America" when asked about a European mountain range. Teachers said, "There are no wrong answers," which was a lie that lived rent-free in our heads. Pretending to hate it was easier than admitting the terror of being put on the spot. And before humiliation could settle in, the intercom crackled to life, announcing the event that made ears ache and parents politely clap through gritted teeth. Sneaking vending machine candy was a rite of passage for many kids in the 1980s. The allure of small, brightly wrapped treats tucked behind glass and guarded by a clunky coin slot was irresistible. Students carefully saved allowances, slyly monitored teachers, and timed their purchases to avoid suspicion. Whether it was a pack of gum, a chocolate bar, or a fruity candy, the thrill of slipping a sweet prize into a pocket or backpack created a rush that made ordinary school days feel adventurous. Friends would trade their secret stashes, comparing flavors and favorites, while the anticipation of the next visit to the vending machine kept excitement alive. And while sneaky snacks fueled energy, another classroom staple demanded attention in a very different way: the glowing, hum-filled overhead projector. Keeping elbows off the table was only part of a larger rule about posture. Sitting up straight mattered. Slouching was corrected instantly. Parents believed posture showed discipline and respect. Meals were treated like formal events, even on regular nights. Kids balanced discomfort with expectation. This rule followed children into adulthood, showing up in meetings and public settings. And as posture was monitored closely, wasting food remained a constant concern. Practicing jump rope tricks in the driveway turned exercise into entertainment. Kids grabbed ropes with plastic handles and snapped them against the pavement, trying to master double jumps, crossovers, or hand switches. Friends gathered to count attempts out loud or challenge each other to faster rhythms. The sound of rope hitting pavement became a soundtrack for many neighborhoods. Even when kids tripped and fell, they laughed, stood up, and started again. Jump rope sessions often lasted until dinner calls echoed down the street. Even though ropes sometimes tangled or handles cracked, the thrill of improving skill kept kids going. And while jump rope brought competition to driveways, the next after-school wander would take kids to places they did not need permission to visit. Taking shoes off inside the house was strictly enforced in many homes. Parents did not want dirt tracked through clean floors. Kids learned to kick shoes off immediately, sometimes lining them up neatly by the door. Forgetting meant a sharp reminder. This rule taught cleanliness and respect for shared space. Even today, many adults automatically remove shoes when entering a home. And once you were inside and settled, dinner table rules quickly came back into focus. Overhead projector presentations were a hallmark of 80s classrooms. Teachers and students alike used the large glass-surfaced devices to display worksheets, diagrams, and notes, sliding transparent sheets across the bright light to illustrate lessons. The projector's glow captivated students, turning dry subjects into interactive visual experiences. Mistakes became theatrical, as a misaligned sheet or a wobbly pointer drew giggles or groans from the class. For students giving presentations, the device was both a tool and a stage, fostering confidence, focus, and public speaking skills. Yet while learning could be illuminated on a projector, creativity often thrived elsewhere, especially on walls filled with colorful construction paper bulletin boards. If these memories took you back, tell us the one school rule you will never forget in the comments. Tap like, subscribe, and stay with us as we uncover more moments time almost erased.